Thank you so much. That's right. Welcome, citizens, to the Douglas County Board of Commissioners Finance Committee. Today is January 13th, 2022. This is our first meeting of the year, and as you know, this is a standing committee, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Before we, right after I take roll call, we'll have to do some administrative things to panel the new committee, and we'll go from there and get into our normal schedule. So with that being said, but who I do know is present is, I'm here, Kelly Robinson, Vice Chairman of the Board of Commissioners and Commissioner of District 2. Madam Guider, if you want to introduce yourself, please.
Yes, I'm Ann Jones Guider, District 4 Commissioner, Vice Chair.
Welcome. Are any of our administrators here?
Good afternoon, Commissioner Robinson, Chairman Robinson. This is Tiffany Stewart Stanley, Assistant County Administrator.
Great. Welcome. Fred Perry on this call.
Mr. Perry is in his certified public manager class right
no
now.
Problem. I get it. It's okay. We'll acknowledge that later. And Rosa Miller, our interim. Go ahead, Rosa.
Good afternoon, Rosa Miller, Interim Finance Director.
Very good. All right, I think that's it for right now, unless I'm missing someone. So with that being said, with that roll call, I'd like to go ahead and I'm going to call for a motion to establish and panel the new Finance Committee for 2022-2023. And I'll try to identify those members, and we'll do it all as far as one motion. And these are only voting members. From time to time, we will have standing members like David Good will be participating in this meeting, but he's non-voting member. But he'll be bringing some financial data to the conversation now going forward regarding non-general fund type of opportunities. And of course, we'll have guest speakers from time to time. So based on that, I was voted by the Board of Commissioners to be the chairman of this session, which is 2023-2024. Madam Ann Jones Guider has agreed to join us as the vice chairman. We will have the deputy county administrator and the assistant county administrator will be members. So that's 4. We'll probably have a county administrator at some point. We'll panel that person in the future. And Rosa Miller, you will be our 5th member. So those are the 5 voting members today. So Kelly Robinson, Ann Jones Guider, Frederick Perry, Tiffany Stewart Stanley, and Rosalind Miller are the 5 voting members of the Finance Committee. Can I get a motion to impanel this group of individuals as the standing committee for 2023 Finance? 2022-2023 Finance Committee.
So move. Can I do it since I'm?
Yes, you can. All right, so we got a motion. Did I hear a second?
Yes, Tiffany Stewart Stanley for the second.
All right, so we've got Madam Ann Jones Guider from 3rd District, from the 4th District, who actually made the motion. Tiffany Stewart Stanley, who is the Assistant County Administrator, who made the second. Any discussion? Is this team sufficient for right now? Recognizing we can add as people are duly assigned. Right, if no more questions, all in favor, we'll go around the room and we'll just say by aye, and we'll count it up and see what we have. Kelly Robinson, yes.
Ann Jones Guider, yes.
Tiffany Stewart Stanley, yes.
Rosa Miller, yes.
All right, that's 4 members. That's enough, sufficiently within the quorum to establish a quorum out of a 5-member committee. And so let it be passed. This is the new Finance Committee of 2022 and 2023. All right, Director Miller, you're up.
Okay.
Our first order of business, do we have any meeting minutes that we need to adopt or establish from our last meeting or the prior?
Yes. We have need approval of the minutes for the Finance Committee meeting of September the 13th, 2021.
September 13th?
Yes.
All right. All right. Can I get a motion to accept the meeting minutes, Finance Committee meeting of September 23rd, 2021?
So moved.
Got a motion? Can I get a second? I'll second it. If no, we got a motion and a second. If there's no discussion, I'll go ahead and call the vote. All in favor of adopting these meeting minutes from the last Finance Committee of 2021, say yes or nay. Kelly Robinson, yes.
And Jones Guyder, I must have abstained because I was not there.
You were not there.
Mhm.
All right.
Tiffany Stewart Stanley, yes.
Rosalind Miller, yes.
All right. So that's 3. And again, I can vote because we're just acknowledging that those meeting minutes were there. I'm sure recorded in the records, there's representation of who was not here. All right, motion carries. All right, Director Miller, next.
Yes, the next item is the Budget Amendment 2022 verification request.
Yes. All right. So this is an important topic that we set expectations of the public and our fellow elected officials, as well as other departments heads that have budgetary responsibility. The Board of Commissioners passed a $104 million budget with about $1 million worth of discretionary that the board chose at our last meeting in adopting the budget for this particular calendar year. We recognized in our first meeting that we probably need to make sure through no fault of anyone other than the fact that we believe that we need a little bit more transparency, and we wanted to make sure that we miss anything, which the Board of Commissioners are obviously allowed by authority. That being said, we put out a notice to everyone in a public meeting to say, hey, take a look at your budget. If there's something that's really pressing, either it's because of some type of constitutional power or just you really needed it, whatever that reason was, we did not name you, but please submit it to Rosalind Miller, in which we would reconcile during our first Finance Committee meeting. We allowed the elected officials to go directly to Rosalind, and we allowed the filtering by general government staff to go through our Deputy County Administrator. So Rosalind, you've had a chance, a couple weeks to sort of aggregate some comments from anybody. There was no condition for submission. And so you're going to share with us the results of that, and we'll go from there.
Okay, so can everyone see my screen? Tiffany, can you see?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so as you see, there's 2 boxes, and I separated general operating and capital because since they're 2 different funding sources. So the first box is general funds, and just a reminder that the board adopted the budget at $104,631,524. After the amendment, the total proposed is $105,613,024, which is a difference of $981,500. That's how much I've received in requests. And I'll go into detail of the request. As you see, the first is District Attorney's Office, and they are requesting some positions, 3 paralegals full-time, 3 investigators, 5 interns, and 3 full-time investigators. Let me make sure that might be, I think I copy paste of that. So let's eliminate that. And then my total, I'm gonna have to change my total. So, and then the next is probate, and probate is requesting salary wage adjustments of $30,000. We have the tax commissioner that is requesting salary and wage adjustments for $40,000. Transportation is requesting a full-time civil engineer 2 for the traffic division. The next, we have Human Resources requesting a full-time HRIS compensation analyst and a part-time HR assistant. The next side is the capital side. And as you...
Hold on real quick. So what does that add up to on the salary side?
Okay, yeah, let me get my... I'm sorry. Okay, it would be $723,500. $723,500.
Okay.
Rosalind,
Yes.
I talked with a probate judge and her figures did not agree with these. Now, the tax commissioner did, but she was asking for to fund the attorney at $60,000. Let's see, I made a little note, $45,000 in 2022. So I guess she used some of those funds to raise her salaries last year, I think, especially for new people coming on board. So we can clarify that later.
Yeah, I think yes, I think her, when speaking with Madam Chair, I believe some of the funding was able to fund some of her requests. But I'll go back to my notes.
Because I think I talked to her after she had talked to Madam Chair. But we just need to clarify.
Okay, I will.
All right.
Go ahead.
Continue to recognize Rosalind.
Okay, so the next, so again, the total is $723,500 for general fund uses. The next is capital, and as you know, per policy, you can set aside 25% of your unrestricted fund balance, which for 2021, it was $3,348,210. However, the board adopted $2,244,700 in capital items in December. What I received after the budget was approved is for transportation for vehicles for a F-250 for $55,609, and another vehicle, a Ranger, for $45,000. For Parks and Recreation, a request for a truck for $27,000, and amenities for Pumpkintown for $100,000. And this totals $227,609.
Yes, 227. What was the first number? 7.
It's 227, comma 609.
Yeah, the first number was 700 something.
Yes, 723.
723. That's close
Comma
enough.
5.
Yeah. And it adds up to 90. And
Well,
and adding those two together is 90 what? Are these combined reconcile it.
No,
here.
well, they're different funding sources. You don't want to, we can come, I can give you the combined total, which is $951,109.
Yeah.
That's
No,
the total request.
Yeah.
But the capital request is 227,609. And then the general government request is $723,500. $723,500.
No problem. And I recognize the different funding sources, but the board still is making adjustments. And so it's a total ask of another $1 million above and beyond what we adopted. So it's a total. What you're saying is something, you're pulling it from something that's already coexisting within the budget. Is that what I'm hearing? You're talking about removing it around, or what are you saying? On the capital side or?
No, it will come from the 3.3 million. And I did review my notes, and for probate, it was a filing system.
For 35, no, 65.
Yeah. That would be included with capital. It was a staff accountant position and a fiduciary
Attorney.
clerk.
All right. So again, so that's what, about 8 people, 8 areas that responded. Fine.
Yes,
No more
we
than-
have the district attorney, probate, tax commissioner, transportation, HR, and parks and recreation. So
Six, seven.
it's a,
How many?
it's a total of 6.
Right. So 6 areas, representing roughly $900,000 above and beyond that. In their minds, they believe they would have wanted it in this year's budget. They did not make it. And what's important is to acknowledge that the board did have a cap. It has a fiscal policy. I get the capital, and sometimes things just don't make it. Now, let's talk about this. Again, my desire is I just wanted to see it, to make sure that we were honest with our fellow colleagues, either our fellow elected officials as well as our employees, that while we know what the ask is, no one's really entitled to anything. We work through the process. You have a cap. It's like musical chairs. You didn't get this round, but you come again at the next moment. But the spirit of our process was not to slight anyone, right? And but again, it is still the discretion of the board. The board and both administrations have always been faithful in this intent to accommodate. That's our job. Number one, go to ACC training. Our job is to set the annual budget. It's a prime priority, but we have to put boundaries on that, and we have to have a process that allows us to do appropriate distribution. Again, we try to spread around as much as possible. Everybody get a plate. We know some areas like the sheriff, obviously has a big appetite. Our transportation is big. We recognize that. So, and we know some areas don't even seem like they get seen. And so that's why sometimes we want to make sure that everybody at least gets 1 degree of a plate, so that they can advance their service delivery for the citizens. So, Madam Guider, I'm not of the will to sort of make a recommendation. I want the board to decide this, seeing that this was a board conversation. Duly noted, I hear it, but what is the will of the board? Do they want to make an amendment to this today, meaning at tomorrow's meeting? Do they want to wait until we revisit the BRRs at the end of our closing of our books in March, April? Do they want to wait till mid-year? Or just say, look, we're just going to pause right now, wait till next year, our next cycle. So, I mean, those will be the 3 choices the board can, either today, April, August, or you just wait, really, it's 4. But I don't have a leaning one way or another, but I do want to talk about it fully with my board. But I'd love to get your respective thoughts.
Commissioner Robinson, I feel like we need to wait until we close the books. But what I would like to know from Rosalind, and I don't know if she knows, were these requests that they asked for and was cut out of their budget by the county administrator?
Okay, and if I can take them one at a time because they're different. So the district attorney's office, it was a mixture. They, in the district attorney's office, they had some in their taxes. So that $30 million list, but also changes due to the grant that they received that the board approved for the 3 attorneys. Well, the 3 attorneys will need paralegals, 3 paralegals. So it's a few changes to their request. Some they did have it in their request, and then some that had made changes once they received the district attorney, the 3 district attorneys due to the grant. The probate.
Let's go over district attorney, and really and truly, we don't have to settle all this today, but I just need this information as I look at it in the future. The investigators, was that originally in their budget, or they just added that because they've got a second chance to come to the table?
No, the investigators and the interns, they were a part of their initial request.
Okay, but all of them were cut.
Initially they asked for about $850,000 in their patsy list, and since Commissioner asked during the public meeting, if it was, if they had any requests for things that they need in their budget, this is the list that I received.
Okay, I'm still a little confused with that last statement, but I just want to know what was there originally, because they should have set their budget with everything they needed at the time. Now, I understand that about the grant.
They did, yes.
They didn't get the grant till what, this year or last year?
No, it was, I think the board just approved it. It was the ARPA.
Last meeting.
Yeah, the last meeting. But Commissioner, no, they did ask for everything they wanted. They asked for everything they wanted in the initial budget request. But under their patsies, and what the patsies are is just like something that is not in your current operating budget that you're requesting for the 2020 calendar year. And with that, they did have requests. Part of that request, they had their investigators, and then they had their interns. But during the last meeting, it was said if you really needed an item but it didn't get approved, please email Rosalind, and so it can be presented for consideration. And this is the list before you for every department that I received.
So the paralegals, were they required because of the grant? Is that what you said?
We're not required, but if the DA's office just stated that if they have the district attorneys, they're going to need paralegals for those 3 district attorneys.
Okay.
ADAs, yes.
Okay.
The transportation, as far as the vehicles and things in the Capitol, did they Was this something that was cut from, they had it in their budget, but it did not make the cut?
That is correct.
And the same thing with Parks and Rec?
The truck, so Parks and Rec is a little different. If you recall, I think back in 2021, the board for Boundary Waters, the board funded half of the budget for this center, and it was only 300,000. And with the 300,000, one vehicle was in the 300,000. However, and I think it was a maybe miscommunication that since the board approved the whole center and the whole budget of the center to run for a whole year, it was assumed that the 27,000 was also just in their 2022 budget. So the department didn't request for it because they were under the impression that the board, approved for, the center, and that they would need 2 vehicles.
Okay.
So that's why it wasn't in their initial request. However, the board saw the initial request back in 2021.
But Parks and Recs, they have vehicles that's in the splosh. Why is this not coming from the splosh?
That I'm not sure.
I mean, there's funds, and we've got excess funds, as we talked about today. It just seems like we could fund the vehicle for Parks and Recs out of splosh. We might want to think about that or look into it further. We don't have to make that decision today. And what is the Pumpkintown Amenities? Was it left off?
No, that was not left off. That wasn't requested in 2020 for 2022 budget request. But the amenities are a pavilion, benches. It's amenities for trash cans.
They put it in their budget. The Parks and Recs did not put it in their budget.
That I'm not. It wasn't included in the budget. When I had the discussion with the director, I believe, and I can't. There was a commissioner that spoke of these items, and he was under the impression that it was already approved.
I know we had something for Pumpkintown, and it may have been in the ARPA funds. Somebody might remember or something, but I can't remember.
Yeah, but that wasn't. Yeah, the request wasn't in. This is a new request.
Okay. But anyway, my suggestion is that we put this off. We may get some answers from the other officials as to why something wasn't in the budget or whatever, or different funding, such as the vehicles for the park. And something was brought up today that is not on here. So we need to talk about that maybe offline right now. But anyway, I suggest that we put this off certainly until we close our books in March.
Okay. All right.
And see where our revenues end up at that time.
And I have another request that I got late today, and it's not a general fund request, but it is fire and EMS, and they're asking for, and this request was in their budget, but their budget was cut, so they're asking for $500,000 to be for their budget to be amended.
This is separate from what you just presented to us?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's a different funding. The first set, the general fund, is coming strictly from general fund, and as you are aware, that the board did allocate. It was projected that it would be about $1.1 million dollars of revenue over expenditures. So that $1 million was going to be allocated for items such as these items. However, the board has already allocated that $1 million. So whatever is added on this list will come from fund balance if there's not another revenue to offset it. Because the money, you adopted a balanced budget.
Okay. Let me go ahead and weigh in. Got it.
Okay.
This is the point where I'm inviting David Good to these conversations. We got to have a single view of everything. To Madam Guider's point, well, I thought we had that over here. You got to have all the lists in front of us, right? And again, the board knew what it did, but the board had no visibility. I'm going to go back to that point. So we were making decisions in the dark. You had no detail, right? So we couldn't really take a position. It was only what y'all were putting on the board, right? And it was somewhat unfair, but okay, I get it. I can see it all. Right? It was a sleight of hand. And so, but in that fairness to everybody, because the process was a little skewed in my opinion historically, I thought we would just introduce this process right here to. Well, let's just make sure, right? We shouldn't have this again, because we're going to be very clear that going into this year's budget, this is the process. You can't get everything you want. We recognize that it gives and moves. We know that a grant comes down, the chief judge comes. Okay, we get those moments, but not for the normative budget process, right? So to Madam Guy's point, are they trying to step this in now because we raised our hand? No, we're being fair and honest. But that doesn't mean that we have to do anything right now. I didn't set expectations that I would actually put this on the agenda tomorrow or Tuesday. This was more of a discussion that I would take it up in finance. So Madam Guider, I think there's time to at least come back to the board as is. I recommend we send it to the full board at our next meeting, which will be in 2 weeks, and let them, during a work session, and let them have the same opportunity to work through this and think through this. This can be sent to them ahead of time, Rosalind, so that they can take a look at it, just like the normal budget process. Don't let them show up the day of, and now they got to reconcile the screen, and that's my issue. Like it's like, okay, guys, y'all ask us to make $1 million decisions in a 5-minute discussion, and that's the tough part. And so that's why you're having to push back. Like, no, come on, staff, not you, Rosalind, but you get the point. I know you being instructed that way, but. We have to do this better. So, Madam Guider, I'm with you 100, but we'll pause. We get at the full board. They're our peers. Let them have the same access that we do. We recommend let them have the same conversation. I agree that there's some questions here. We know we get the chief. Yeah, we get it. We get chief judge. We get the chief fire chief over in fire. I get it. And the board will make those decisions. But again, one time, don't nickel and dime us. So if we amend this, regardless, I get the general fund. I get obviously taking out a fund balance. I get SPLOS. I get ARP. But here we are in the finance committee. We don't have all three lists here, and yet we're seen as the committee to make the recommendations. Like no. And again, if the board wants to make a decision, recognize, well, guys, we had a collection rate of 93. We moved it to 94. Did you get accomplished? It's not can we do this? We move the board. And that requires a respectful discussion. It says, well, let's think about it. We did well by our employees. We made sure they got salaries. We did well. We got a SPLOS that's doing well. We have not withheld anything from anybody. So the point is, I get it, but we don't have to rush this. So now I'm glad without belaboring this was a good topic on our very first meeting. But I say we all send it over to the full board as is with no edits. Let them have the same access that we do. Rosalind, send it directly to the board as a follow-up out of this. Let them sort of simmer on this so that they can come prepared during that meeting. They can do their homework, and it's up or down. Either pause. I'm with you, Madam Guider. I take the position, wait to the revisit. But I want them to have the same access. What do you think, Madam Guider? You okay with that process, that approach?
Certainly, certainly.
All right. Rosalind, you got your marching orders. So this is administrative concurrence. We're going to send it straight to the board as a recommendation at our next meeting in February. As a work session item for this discussion in a work session. But you have to, before then, you're going to send out this document to them ahead of time to allow them to ask their own independent questions like Madam Guider did, who met with certain people on their own. Can we do it that way?
Okay, yes, and I'll clean it up. I'll add probate's fiduciary clerk and her staff attorney. And
Fire chief, clarify whatever you got. Still going to be up to the board.
Yeah, and then the fire chief's $500,000, and it's for other professional services, and he stated such as software and maintenance on equipment, and then he also out of the $500,000 for uniforms. I will add, and of course, again, that is under the unincorporated fund for fire, but I will add that.
No problem. And I do get it. The other buckets have different ways in which they can move. But we just talked about this in executive session. It's not that it's no, just not now. Mm-hmm. Right? A delay is not a denial. Take your pick which one you want. We're just saying, okay, steady. We did well by this budget. 5-0. It was solid. One of the best, experiences we've had. Everybody had peace about what they were looking at. So we, as a board, we're fine. We're good. We get it, guys, but you guys were taken care of. And if they choose to amend, again, move the collection rate up 1 point, that's about $1 million or $500,000. You can cover everything in addition to the things that already can be covered within. It's just a matter of not could we do it, but should we do it and would we do it? All right. Assistant County Administrator, you got that? Are you clear?
Yes, Chairman Robinson, I am clear.
All right, so let's just go ahead. I'm going to call for a motion to take this course of action. So I make a motion to recommend to the full Board of Commissioners this list as is with the edits as stated in this meeting, and that the Finance Director will submit this information to the board ahead of that meeting. And at that time, we'll have a full discussion and take further action at that point.
Second.
All right, we got a motion second. Any further discussion?
Should we name the meeting that we will bring this back up?
That'll be fine. I will name my statement to be the meeting of February, what, the 1st and 2nd?
Oh, yeah.
That's correct.
The 1st and 2nd of 2022. All right, we made that edit during this discussion. Any further discussion? We got a motion and a second. Fully discussed. I'll go around the room, start with myself. All in favor say yes. All not in favor say no. Kelly Robinson, yes.
And Jones Guider, yes.
Rosalind Miller, yes.
Tiffany Stewart Stanley, yes.
All right, full recommendation goes to the full board as is stated. All right, click. Rosalind, next.
Okay. The next, we'll go into the financial report for the month of December 2021. But I just want to make a note that this is unaudited, and this is like the first look of December. As you are aware, we are a calendar year, and it usually takes up to 60 days to get our final numbers in.
Understood.
Okay. So what you will see in the next few pages in the reports, you would see that our revenue has decreased when comparing it to 2020. Revenue has decreased $8.7 million. And the major changes is other financing sources, which decreased by 4.1 million when comparing it with 2020. And this is due to the capital lease that we received in 2020 and COVID reimbursements for 2020 that we did not receive in 2021.
Understand.
Another decrease, major decrease, is 7 million, and this was federal grants. We received about 5.6 million in federal grants, and then we received reimbursement for public safety salaries. Fines and forfeitures also decreased by $700,000 compared to 2020. However, the total taxes increased by 3 million when compared to 2020. You'll also see in the next few pages of the actual financial reports, the expenses, the expenditures for the month of December for year to date were at $104,548,000. The county's expenditures are under budget by 6.65%, but again, we haven't fully closed out the month of December or our year to date. You'll find that majority of the departments have stayed within budget or under budget, and this is due to the departments really looking at their financials, staying within budget, and also COVID. So it was limited activity during the first part of the year. Also, as David mentioned during your meeting work session this morning about the SPLOS receipts, our target to meet that service receive about, the average is 1.3 million per month, and the collection to date is $127 million. Let's take a look at lost. What you see before you is a historical trend of loss back from 2016 to current or last year, 2021. And the receipts are a month lag. Pay the receiver. Comparing it to 2020, it's a $1.9 million increase. The next is SPLOS trend. Again, it's comparing from 2016 to current for 2021. Same as lost, it's a 1 month lag. For 2021, 26.7 million, and compared to 2020, you see the net change of each.
Let me, before you move off that, I'm going to bring David into this very quickly. So again, I recognize this is supposed to be the clearinghouse for all the financials. So David, your numbers port over, you feed Rosin or she feeds you? Who's the master source of information?
The master source of information actually would be Rosin whenever they get the numbers in to let us know, hey, how much came to Douglas County, how much went to the bond, and how much goes to the city and to the other cities. So we get our master fed from Rosin on the numbers, and then we break down everything when it comes to the projects.
Right, this is perfect. That's where I was going to go, and I'll be quick with this. So for our committee, for the public that's watching this, these numbers that we're looking at are less the city or inclusive of the city, and it's broken out separately. What am I looking at in this master list, this financial report? Does it include the city as a total?
I'm sorry, Rosalind, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is the total. This is the total collection.
All right. So this is the distinction. So this is the total number. And so, as we're making our decisions, that means, David, your numbers are going to be less than this, because if this includes the city, yours don't include the city, does it?
Correct. The only thing includes the city is when we give our initial, whenever we say that we have an overage, that part includes everything, because we're doing everything through the county. But whenever we talk about certain projects, those projects are based upon the money that Douglas County's contribution side is.
So the 13 million that you referenced earlier, the 147 odd total, less to 2127, whatever that number is.
That's total.
That's total.
Correct.
So the city, if I recall, the SPLOST is based on population. So somebody, a third of that 13 million is, I don't know, 4. So really, we get what, 8 million out of that? That's 4 million had to go to the cities. Is that close enough?
Because we get 72.26% of the SPLOST. The cities get the other part.
Yeah, 28%. No, I got the math right. So again, so when I heard 13 million, really, we the board, has 8 million to work with. Is that accurate?
Yes, give or take, yes, sir.
Right, and that's important. So when I'm looking at the SPLOST list and we're looking at reforecasting, it's based on 8 million, not 13 million. All right, I got it. All right, Rosalind, I got it. I want to just draw that distinction here. Thank you, David, for that. Keep going, Ron.
No,
Oh,
Commissioner
no,
Roberts,
go ahead. Yes,
I need
please.
to ask,
Yes, please weigh in.
did you say that these figures are just our money, right?
Yes, in total,
Okay.
right? Yes.
Okay. This is our money, but what David stated today has been over the SPLOST bank of 13 million. That's we just get a portion of that.
Yeah, I think it's 9 million.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
I always assumed that was our money.
Oh yeah.
Okay. I yield back.
Yes, no, excellent question. That's why we
Yeah.
have these dialogues, and it's just to draw a distinction and different views. So, no, we're good. I mean, again, just aha. It took us 5 years to get it, but hey, we got it. Aha.
Yeah. Well, because on our report, we have to report the total because we receive the total in and then we disperse it out. So we have to, so we report it that way, but then we have disbursements that go to the city and then the vendors.
No, and here's the thing. We all, when we join boards, we all come with different backgrounds and experiences, and we all see things differently. The numbers don't lie. The numbers were always the numbers. It was just our understanding of what we were looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah, are we discernment? So, no, we're good. No, no need to defend. The numbers were the numbers. We just had to make sure we knew what we were looking at. So you're fine. You're good. Go ahead, Rosalind. Keep going. Keep us moving.
Okay. Well, the next worksheet that you see, it gives you the total life to date of the SPLOST, and that's the 127 million. You see the principal and interest that for debt service, and then after 100% of the debt service is funded, you see what is left, and this is again life to date. After checks are paid to vendors, it tells you the next column where it says county pay go and interest net of claims, which are checks. That tells you how much is in the bank, and then it gives you the city's pay go.
Yep. All right, keep going.
All right. So the next report that you see is a summary of our 4 major funds that we usually discuss during this meeting. And you have the general fund, you have the unincorporated, then you have fire service and EMS, and then you have animal control. And so Okay, so you see for general fund, it's 105 million in revenue, and let me mark. I'm highlighting intergovernmental because that's non-recurring. And then I'm going to highlight other financing sources, which that is ARPA for the hazard pay. So these two items, and then the small, the miscellaneous and stuff. But the biggest is the 2.8 and the 1.6 internal governmental, that's grants, and then other financing sources, that is ARPA, but it's usually other financing sources. It can be, several different, but in this case, it is ARPA. So if you take those two amounts away of the 105, you'll get about 101 million. And currently that's what is stated as recurring revenue. Does that make sense? Everybody? Okay. All right. The next, you see unincorporated, the revenue is 12 million. Fire services and EMS, 17.4, and then animal control, 1.4 million. The expenditures for general government is 104.5, which leaves an excess of revenue of $962,000. The next is unincorporated, and the expenditures is 9.4, and it has an excess of revenue of 2.5 million. Next is fire and EMS. Expenditures is 16.8. That leaves an excess of revenue of 682,000. The next is animal control. Expenditures 1.2. Excess of revenue 242,000. The next line item will give you the beginning fund balance, what we ended last year, and I get my years mixed up, but what we ended in 2020. So you add for general fund, we ended fund balance with 36.3 million, and when you add the excess of revenue of 962, you'll get 37.3 million ending fund balance for 2021. For Unink, when you add their excess of revenue, you get 4.1 million. And for fire and EMS, you get 1.4 million. And for animal control, 503 ending fund balance. However, there are obligations that we know of that we actually have to account for, which takes away from or allocates the fund balance where it's restricted, and you will it's committed, it's signed, you can't touch it. So for general fund, out of the 37.3 million, 29.5 million is unrestricted. And that means, or unassigned, that means that you can use the funding for operations of general government. It's not restricted. For instance, what is restricted part of general fund, you see that the 3.6 million, that's encumbrance. Those are POs. Line items are for the departments, but we know that there is an obligation because there is a PO. So we know that this amount is restricted, and it will only be for the POs that have been encumbered. So it takes from that 37. So Again, you have 29.5 million that's unassigned. For Unink, you have 4.1 million unassigned. For fire, you have $1 million that's unassigned. And then for animal control, you got 476,000 that's unassigned. The next is gives you the revenue for general fund. And as I mentioned earlier, some of the items that if you compare with last year, a big one is about $1 million. You have real property prior year. This year it's 3 million. Last year in 2020 was 1.9. Remember, this total area has increased. The total taxes increased by $3 million. The next is
Rosalind,
yeah.
can I ask you about the revenues and the tax collections and everything? Through what date has he turned everything over to you? Has he turned over as of year end?
Yeah, it was the tax bills were due in November, I believe. So the receipts from the tax commissioner received the second week in December were a good portion of, as you can see, of collections. Because if you look at current digest, we received 57.6 million, and that's 102% of what was budgeted. And the whole section is 100. We've collected over 100% of budget revenue.
So I can't remember what our estimate for this year, for last year was. I know for this year we're doing 93. Do you know at what point, what percentage we estimated when we set the budget?
For 2021,
21.
that I'm not sure. That I'm not sure. I would have to look at the
Can you find out for us? I'd like to know that. Well, I'd like to know for the past 5 years, what was the collection rate each year?
That's different. I can tell you, what the collection rate was for each year, but what was budgeted, I do have to.
Yeah.
Do both.
I'm on both. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll write that down. What was budgeted and what was actual? I can write
That's
that.
fine. That's an action item. No problem.
Okay.
All right. Keep going.
Okay. So the next was your grants. And as I mentioned, received 9.9 million last year in grants. This year only 2.8. Your charges for service received last year 3.5, this year 3.7. Court and law enforcement fees and fines received last year 4.8, this year 4.1. And then interest, the use of property and money, 104,000, 6,000 this year. And you see miscellaneous and other financing sources, what I mentioned earlier. So total was 114 million. This year, 105 million. And again, this is just preliminary. This is a draft. We haven't received our total numbers yet.
Understood.
The next is expenditures for general fund and for general government under budget, in total under budget by 2.4%. The judicial under budget 8.78%. Safety under budget 1.4%. And public works is under budget 11.59%. Then you have health and welfare, it's also under budget 15.42. You have parks and recreation, that is under budget 25.78. And then you have planning and community development, it's also under budget 26.61%. And total expenditures last year was 99.9. This year is 104 million. However, compared to budget is 111 million. So you're under budget by 6.65%. That's you spent 93.35% of your budget. And again, it shows your excess of revenue of 962,000.
So that's about the 6-7 million under, right?
Right, 6.65.
Well, I mean, dollar wise, we're about 6 or 7 million under that we haven't spent.
Yeah, when you compare it to budget, it's about 4 million, 4.6 million.
So you're under budget by 4 or 5 million, easy math. And you had a conservative collection. So this under budget rolls over into the new year, correct?
No,
I'm okay. No, I'm just making a point. You use or lose. So you start over. So, all right.
So that's how general fund. So now we'll look at the unincorporated.
All right, but let me real quick, let me make a point. And it goes back to, and I appreciate staff. You use what we gave you. And yet, here we are, some of the areas that you're mentioning are the areas that are asking for stuff. Now, I know that sometimes it's timing, and maybe projects didn't move, and I get that, but I'm just making a point. And that's why you need information. Like, okay, what now? I mean, you're under by that much. And yet, we get sweated over 900,000, but y'all sitting on 4 million collectively. But I get it. I'm just, I'm guided. I'm just, I'm just making a point, just for the general public as they see us have our debates and stuff, and they hear it in bits and pieces when they peek in on our meetings. And so sometimes we take a position, not in opposition, but like, okay, guys, work with us. We appreciate your conservatism, but to your point, I'm glad you always say, well, you budgeted, that's what you submitted. And so we hold you to it. But yet, again, when I get the undercurrent of a narrative that says, but wait a minute now. I mean, these are some big underages. I mean, it's always that outlook for anything over 10%, right? So anything less than 10, all right, keep moving. But some of these areas are sort of, they're material. Parks and Rec, why are you off 25, 20? What was that about? I don't want to solve it here. Those things that when we look at reports like that, we can go look at sort of the variances and those that are sort of outside the acceptable, plus or minus 10 is something that sometimes the question can come up. But I'll bring this up when we get into the budget variance process in a couple weeks. And then why should we do this? Not could we, but what happened here? Right? And sort of manage better. Don't take for granted the budget process. This is all taxpayer dollars. So that's what we sometimes say, well, get in the ring with us, guys. Advocate, but let's also show your performance as we make those decisions. And that's the thing we have to push back on, is performance. What did you do what we gave you? And so anyway, Roslyn, keep going. I know you got a report to get through, so I just want to make that point.
Yeah.
Keep going.
And and also with the Parks and Recreation that you mentioned, but remember they have been shut down. They were shut down, so.
I understand. But you bring up a good point. No, Ross, you bring up a good point, but Madam Chair ends every meeting with her backup, wash up conversation. And we're going to have to move to a place where we're living, to coexist with the pandemic. I'm not making an excuse. I'm just speaking. The numbers don't lie. It's not why we came in under. But again, if you know we're shut down, that means that you know that you're coming in under. So therefore, there should not be an extra ask. That means you were aware that you had extra cash. It's about consciousness and awareness. That's all. I'm just making a point. Don't defend it. The numbers don't lie. It's okay. And that's the things that we have to ask them, not you. Your job is just to make sure our numbers are accurate and they're reflective. And then we'll go ask them, okay, so now what happened now? And I'll leave it alone. So keep going, please. You're doing good.
Okay. The next is the unincorporated, and comparing revenue from last year, 11.2. This year, 12 million. I mean, they've collected 111% of the budget. Expenditures for unincorporated, you're at 10, last year 10.4, this year 9.4. And they are a little over budget by 0.51%. The next is fire protection. Last year's revenue, 21.6. This year, 17.4. Again, last year had the COVID funding for public safety reimbursement. Expenditures, 20.5. This year, 16.8. Fire is under budget by 1.74%. And again, they have 682,000 going to fund balance. Next is animal control. Last year's revenue was $1 million. This year's revenue is 1.4 million. And they've collected 102% of their budget revenue. Their expenditures is 1.1 million last year, 1.2 this year. Animal control is 15.92% under budget. They're putting 242,000 into fund balance. And that ends for the major report funds that we report on. The next is the summary of the contingency fund.
Yep, keep going.
Any questions? I can move on.
What's your, all right, so to that point, what was our remaining contingency for year end, roughly?
You started off with 2.7 million. Remaining balance is 2 million, or ending is 2 million.
Got it. Okay. Keep going.
The next is your healthcare fund. The healthcare fund is adding, it's healthy. It's adding, you're adding 400,000 to the fund balance. However, with healthcare claims, there's also a lag too. So this fund is not updated. There will be more expenditures.
Sure.
Still good, stay healthy.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we're funded. We're no longer, we used to, Madam Guidman, we used to take from the healthcare fund to balance our budget. I'm glad we're no longer there anymore, but still, this is healthy. So we're adequately funding this, is what I'm hearing. Is that true?
Right. Yes. So
Okay.
far, December's expenditures for the healthcare fund was at 95.11%, which is under budget by 4.89.
Keep going.
Well, that's all I have.
All right. That's the report in its entirety. Madam Guider, are you okay? You have peace in what you heard? She's got a couple of action items she owes us on some information that we noted, but is there anything else?
No, sir. And I have to go to Macon this afternoon. So
We've all got somewhere to go. Hey, this finance, we'll keep it moving. Again, we'll keep this tight for this particular meeting. We'll add all members later. We've already installed a deputy director, so when deputy administrator, when he shows up, he'll be fine. David, I just asked that you again have a spouse list ready and also the art list on standby from time to time. So if we have questions, we can do it real time. You're more intimate and stuff, and we recognize that Rosin is the aggregator, but you play an important role because of what we speak to the public about.
All right, we'll do.
All right. Is there anything else, Rosin, we need to add to this meeting? This first one out, this new committee?
No, I think it went very well. I have my action items.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Well, if there's nothing else that comes before this committee, Finance of the Douglas County Board of Commissioners on the 13th of January, 2022, let this meeting stand adjourned at whatever time it states.